And so when you say these years and the amount of people that I've met who have said to me and been touched by The Matrix in such a positive way, it's the best.
Keanu Reeves was born on September 2nd, 1964 in Beirut, Lebanon. His name, Keanu, comes from Hawaiian, meaning cool breeze over the mountains. It sounds peaceful, almost poetic, but his life would be anything but calm. From the very start, Reeves was surrounded by instability. His father, Samuel Reeves Jr., was a Hawaiian geologist, while his mother, Patricia Taylor, worked as a costume designer. Their marriage fell apart when Keanu was just a toddler. His father left when he was 2 years old. By the time Keanu turned 13, he had already seen his dad for the last time. But here's what makes it even harder to imagine. Keanu grew up without a steady home or reliable family structure. His mom moved them from place to place, searching for stability in new relationships. They bounced from Beirut to Sydney, then to New York, and finally settled in Toronto. With each move came a new stepfather. None stayed long enough to truly become family. Along the way, half-siblings and step-siblings entered his life, but only one sibling, Kim Reeves, shared both parents. She became his anchor during those early, chaotic years. Growing up, Keanu never had a chance to feel rooted. His childhood was filled with packed suitcases, unfamiliar homes, and birthdays that passed in cities he barely remembered. He didn't just move between cities, he moved between families, and school didn't offer much relief either. He attended 4 different high schools in just 5 years. He struggled to read because of dyslexia, and teachers misunderstood his difficulty as defiance. One principal even expelled him just for asking too many questions. Keanu later said, "I questioned everything too much." But the truth is, he was just a kid trying to make sense of a world that never stopped shifting under his feet, and just when it seemed like life couldn't throw any more curveballs, Keanu found a rare safe space: the ice rink. Hockey became his passion. As a goalie, he earned the nickname The Wall. On the rink, he found something he hadn't felt before: belonging. His dream was to play in the Ontario Hockey League and maybe even represent Canada in the Olympics. For once, he had a clear goal and the determination to reach it. But at age 15, that dream was ripped away. A serious injury ended his chances of going pro. In one moment, his only steady passion vanished. For someone who had lost so much already, losing hockey was more than just losing a sport. It was like losing his last chance at a normal life. That injury closed one door, but unknowingly opened another. In a strange twist of fate, that closed door led him to acting. Keanu began considering the stage as a place where he could still express himself. The pain and loneliness he'd felt growing up didn't fade, but now he had a new way to channel it. What Keanu didn't know then was that the wounds from his early years, his father's absence, the constant moving, the school struggles, the end of his hockey dream were all shaping him into someone who could carry deep, quiet strength. These experiences wouldn't just be scars, they would become the very foundation of the resilience that would one day make him a star. Keanu's journey into acting started quietly. After leaving high school without graduating, he decided to pursue something new. Acting wasn't just a career choice, it was a way to escape everything that had broken him. But it wouldn't be easy. Dyslexia still made reading scripts difficult, and early roles weren't glamorous. He took what he could get: soda commercials, small parts on Canadian TV, and even hosted a children's program. None of it paid much, but he kept going. And this is where his resilience really started to show. He packed everything into a battered old Volvo and drove to Los Angeles, chasing a dream most people give up on. He had no major connections and barely any money. His apartments were bare, he stretched every dollar. He knocked on doors that stayed closed, yet he didn't give up. Casting agents couldn't figure him out. Was he leading man material or just another drifter? Then came his first real break. In 1986, Keanu starred in River's Edge, a dark indie film that proved he could carry emotional depth. The industry took notice. More serious roles followed. Films like Permanent Record showed a quiet intensity no one expected. That intensity came from real pain. Keanu wasn't acting grief, he was showing the sorrow he'd carried his whole life. It was during this period that something rare happened. He found a true friend. On the set of My Own Private Idaho, Keanu met River Phoenix. Both came from broken families. Both had seen too much pain for their age. River was wild and brilliant. Keanu was grounded and steady. Together, they balanced each other out. Their bond was deep, not just friendship, it felt like chosen family. It was the first time Keanu had someone who really understood the weight he carried. Their film together was a hit, but Hollywood wanted something different from Keanu. In 1989, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure turned him into a pop culture icon. As the goofy time-travelling Ted, Keanu won over a whole generation. The problem was, the success came with a price. Hollywood typecast him. Suddenly, he wasn't seen as a serious actor anymore. The Airhead label followed him around like a shadow. Even when he tried to take on deeper roles, that label held him back. He once said, "I craved something light-hearted." But the world didn't understand that he also craved depth. No matter how hard he worked, people doubted him. They called him wooden, said he was lucky, said he was just a pretty face. But those people weren't looking closely enough. What they missed was the pain behind his eyes, the kind of emotion you can't fake. Keanu didn't complain. He just kept working. He took whatever roles he could to keep going. Behind the scenes, he was still living modestly, still grinding, still waiting for the world to catch up. And then, in the early 90s, it finally started to turn. In Point Break, he wasn't just an action hero. He brought sincerity to adrenaline. Critics started to realize something. This wasn't just an action star. This was someone with real soul. And then came Speed. Paired with Sandra Bullock, Keanu became a household name. The movie exploded, both literally and figuratively. Studios begged him to return for a sequel. He said no, not for money, not for fame. He just didn't believe in doing something if it wasn't true to him. That choice cost him. Hollywood called him difficult, reckless. But to Keanu, doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. Keanu Reeves had finally made it. But as quickly as the spotlight hit him, life was already preparing another blow. His career in the mid-1990s went through a rough patch. Movies like Johnny Mnemonic and Chain Reaction flopped. Critics started circling again. They wondered if his earlier success had just been luck. Once again, he faced the whispers. Maybe he wasn't good enough. Maybe he couldn't carry a movie. But something deeper was brewing beneath the surface. Something far more personal. While the public questioned his talent, Keanu was dealing with the slow collapse of one of the most important friendships of his life. On October 31st, 1993, River Phoenix died outside the Viper Room in Los Angeles from a drug overdose. He was only 23. The loss was devastating. For Hollywood, River was a young star gone too soon. For Keanu, it was like losing a brother. The grief didn't come with loud outbursts or public statements. It came in silence. He shut down. He cried alone. He never tried to explain the pain. The world didn't see it, but it changed him. River's death didn't just mark the end of a friendship. It carved a permanent absence into Keanu's life. And yet, he didn't let grief swallow him whole. Just a few years later, something unexpected happened. The Matrix landed in his lap. In 1999, the world saw him step into the role of Neo, and everything changed. The movie became a cultural phenomenon, and Keanu was suddenly bigger than ever. But what fans didn't know was how much it had taken from him behind the scenes. To prepare for the role, Keanu trained non-stop: martial arts, wire work, physical conditioning. It pushed his body to the edge. At one point, a spinal injury nearly left him paralyzed. He had to undergo neck surgery, wearing a brace during parts of filming. And still, he showed up. He fought through pain, fatigue, and injury, all to bring Neo to life. He never complained. He never asked for pity. This wasn't just about making a blockbuster. It was about proving something, to the world and to himself. The pain from his childhood, the rejection from critics, the loss of River, it all fueled him. The Matrix wasn't just a movie. It was a moment where Keanu took every broken piece of his past and used it to build something powerful. But even at the height of his success, darkness wasn't far behind. That same year, in 1999, Keanu's life took a cruel and tragic turn. He had finally found love with actress Jennifer Syme. The two shared a quiet, private relationship away from cameras. Soon, they were expecting a child together. Keanu prepared for fatherhood with genuine excitement. For someone who had grown up without a father, this was a second chance, a moment to heal old wounds. Then, heartbreak struck. On Christmas Eve, their daughter Ava was stillborn. Keanu and Jennifer were crushed. The nursery they had prepared now held silence. The crib stayed empty, the baby clothes never worn, and just like that, their dream of building a family was gone. The pain was unimaginable, but the tragedy didn't end there. Just 18 months later, Jennifer was killed in a car accident. Keanu was left alone, no partner, no child, and no way to go back. At her funeral, he carried her coffin. The weight wasn't just physical, it was the burden of loss, once again dropped into his hands. And like always, he faced it in silence. Friends say he didn't scream or collapse. He just stood still. It was the same stillness he had known his whole life, the kind that follows heartbreak you can't explain. After Jennifer's death in 2001, Keanu returned to film sets, but something in him had shifted. He performed his roles, met his obligations, and faced the public, but behind every appearance was a man hollowed out by grief. The flashbulbs kept going off and the movie trailers kept rolling, but nothing felt the same. His eyes told a different story. Even as Neo defied death on screen, Keanu was living with the kind of pain that couldn't be undone. But just when you think he had faced enough loss, life had one more cruel test waiting. Around this time, Keanu's younger sister Kim was battling leukemia. She had been diagnosed years earlier, but her condition had worsened. For Keanu, this wasn't just a health scare. It was war. He became her caregiver, flying back and forth from movie sets to hospital rooms. He rearranged entire filming schedules. He turned down roles quietly, never explaining why. Because sitting beside Kim's hospital bed meant more than any blockbuster. In private, Keanu gave millions to cancer research. He even started a charitable foundation dedicated to helping children's hospitals and cancer patients. But he never attached his name. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to give back. The same man who carried Jennifer's coffin was now carrying his sister through her darkest hours. He didn't want recognition. He wanted to fight. And in the middle of this battle, he kept acting. Because acting wasn't just a job for him anymore. It was how he survived. His roles began to reflect something deeper. Characters who were broken, grieving, searching for purpose. He played them not because they were fictional, but because he had lived their pain. Kim eventually went into remission, but the damage had been done. Not just to her, but to Keanu too. The years of hospital visits, quiet prayers, and uncertainty had left a mark that no film role could cover up. Still, Keanu carried on. Not with the energy of a man chasing fame, but with the determination of someone who knew every day was a gift. And then, just when the public thought they'd seen the full extent of his career, he reinvented himself again. In 2014, John Wick was released. It was supposed to be a simple revenge movie, but it became something else entirely. Audiences were drawn in by the action, but what kept them watching was the grief. The character of John Wick wasn't just angry, he was mourning. He had lost someone he loved. He was aching in silence. Sound familiar? Keanu didn't just act the role, he became it. The training was brutal. He pushed his aging body through gun range drills, stunt driving, and combat training. Bruises became normal. His knees throbbed, his muscles screamed, but he didn't use stunt doubles. He did it all himself. Every scene, every fall, every punch, he gave everything. Not for ego, not for money, but because the story mattered, because pain, when shared through art, could become something powerful. And in that role, the world saw something they hadn't seen before. Not just a star, but a warrior. Not someone playing a hero, but someone who had lived through real pain and still stood tall. John Wick was a legend, but Keanu Reeves was the real one, and yet the toll was obvious. By the time John Wick Chapter 4 came out, Keanu Reeves was in his late 50s, and the wear and tear on his body was undeniable. Years of stunt work had taken a heavy toll. His knees were worn out, his shoulders ached, his spine had already gone through one major surgery. Even simple movements came with pain, but he kept going. Every fight scene, every crash, every roll across concrete, he did it not because he had something to prove, but because he felt like he owed it to the audience. And here's the part that most people never saw. After the cameras stopped rolling, Keanu didn't head off to glamorous parties. He limped back to trailers. He iced his joints. He rested in silence. He never made a scene about the pain, never demanded special treatment. He just dealt with it quietly, respectfully, the same way he had faced everything else in his life. While other actors might have bragged about the work, Keanu stayed humble. When asked about his training, he'd smile and say, "I just wanted to do my best." But behind those modest words was a man pushing himself to the limit for every frame. What the world praised on screen had been bought quite literally with his bones. And then came a sign that even Keanu couldn't ignore. In 2022, while filming a scene for the movie Good Fortune, he slipped during a cold water immersion sequence. As he moved, his knee gave out with a loud cracking sound. He later described it as like a potato chip breaking. It wasn't just an injury, it was a wake-up call, a moment that reminded him his body couldn't carry on like this forever. Doctors helped him recover. He went through therapy, but the message stuck. No matter how disciplined or focused, even someone like Keanu Reeves couldn't outrun time. His joints told the truth. His stride slowed. His movements grew more cautious. But rather than resist, he adapted. Instead of fighting the change, he embraced it. He started swimming more, walking at dusk, doing long stretches, slow breathing. The kind of movements that weren't about pushing harder, but about healing. He treated his body like something sacred. Not because he feared getting older, but because he respected how far it had already carried him. In interviews, he began speaking more openly about balance. Not quitting, not disappearing, just doing things on his own terms. Projects that mattered, roles that felt meaningful, time with people he loved. After decades of giving everything to the world, he was learning to give something back to himself, and perhaps the greatest sign of this shift came from where he chose to live. Keanu bought a home in the Hollywood Hills back in the early 2000s, after years of living in hotels and rented apartments. It's not flashy, it's not massive, but it's peaceful. The house has glass walls, open patios, and a koi pond that glimmers in the sun. It's a place built not for show, but for healing. That's where he now spends his quiet moments, with Alexandra Grant, the artist and partner he's been with for years. Their love wasn't built on headlines or tabloid stories. It grew from collaboration and friendship. They create art together, read side by side, cook, walk, live slowly and quietly, away from the noise. In a world where fame often means constant exposure, Keanu Reeves is the opposite. He doesn't flood the internet with selfies or updates. He doesn't chase followers. In fact, he barely uses social media at all. For him, life isn't about being seen. It's about being present. Whether he's reading quietly, playing music, or supporting Alexandra at her art shows, he chooses to live small, intentional moments rather than large, loud ones. But don't confuse privacy with inactivity. Keanu still works. He still creates. He's just more selective now. After decades of putting his body and mind through extreme pressure, he's earned the right to do things on his own schedule. The John Wick series may continue, but only if his body allows it. He's already filmed a cameo for Ballerina, a spin-off in the same universe. But beyond that, he's not in a rush. He doesn't need the spotlight. He's done enough to leave a mark. Lately, Keanu's been returning to his musical roots. His band, Dogstar, which had been silent for years, made a quiet comeback. No stadium tours, no flashy promotions, just small, intimate venues where Keanu plays bass, smiles shyly at fans, and reconnects with the joy that existed long before Hollywood came calling. It's another reminder that not all fulfillment comes from fame. Sometimes it's found in the soft strum of strings and the shared rhythm of old friends. But even as he slows down, his body keeps reminding him of the years he gave away. Chronic pain is now part of his everyday life. His knees carry the weight of years of stunt work. His spine, once surgically repaired, remains fragile. Every role he takes now comes with calculated risk. He trains harder than ever just to stay in shape. And when filming ends, his recovery doesn't stop. Ice baths, gentle therapy, long rests. He listens to his body now like it's a teammate, one that's taken enough hits. Still, he shows up, not because he needs to prove something, but because he loves the craft. He once said, "I only want to do what makes my heart beat faster." At this stage in his life, that means more than just movies. It means poetry, it means art, it means people who matter, and most of all, it means peace. But even as he heals, the shadows of his past never truly leave. The death of River Phoenix, the loss of Jennifer, the stillborn child, the cancer battles with his sister, those memories don't fade. They sit quietly beside him, not screaming, just there, present, always. And yet he doesn't run from them. He accepts them. In fact, many say it's those very losses that turned Keanu into the man he is today. Kind, gentle, thoughtful. He doesn't interrupt, he listens. He doesn't boast, he shares. Whether it's helping someone on the street or giving up his seat on a subway, he never does it for attention. He does it because he understands what it's like to carry pain you can't explain. And that's the real reason people love him. Not for the roles, but for the way he walks through life. For the way he's turned grief into gentleness, pain into presence, tragedy into quiet strength. For all the talk of Keanu's tragic past and quiet strength, what makes his story truly rare is how he continues to give without expecting anything in return. Most celebrities are known for flashy donations or public charity events. Keanu, he's quietly given away millions. He's helped fund cancer research, children's hospitals and relief programs, all without attaching his name. Most of the world didn't even know he had a private foundation until someone else mentioned it. That's how he wants it. Quiet. Genuine. From the heart. And this pattern of silent giving shows up again and again. On the set of The Matrix, when the crew faced intense pressure, Keanu gave away a significant portion of his earnings, reportedly millions, to the special effects and costume teams. Not as a publicity stunt, but because he believed they deserved it. On the set of John Wick, he bought Harley-Davidson motorcycles for his stunt crew. No press release, no media attention, just gratitude, quietly given. He doesn't live like a man with hundreds of millions. His home isn't filled with gold-plated anything. His clothes are simple. His hobbies are modest. He rides the subway. He eats at regular diners. He walks around Los Angeles like anyone else. If he's recognized, he smiles politely and keeps moving. Fame hasn't turned him into a symbol. If anything, he's stripped the image away and chosen to be fully human. And in being so human, Keanu has created a new kind of legacy, one rooted in empathy. He doesn't try to be perfect. He's not chasing youth. He doesn't hide his grey hair or his limp. He doesn't run from age, he embraces it. His posture might be slower now, his steps more deliberate, but every move carries intention. When he speaks, it's with pauses, not because he's unsure, but because he thinks before he talks. In an industry that often rewards volume over value, he's chosen to speak less, but say more. Even in the roles he picks today, that mindset is clear. He plays characters who are broken but not defeated. Fighters, yes, but fighters with soul. Men who've lost but haven't lost themselves. Whether it's Neo, John Wick, or any new character, they all carry something familiar. Pain in the eyes, silence between sentences, a history that doesn't need to be explained. That's Keanu in every role. Never loud, but always real. And that authenticity has made him something few actors ever become. Timeless. Young fans admire him. Older fans respect him. People across the world see parts of themselves in his story, not because they've been in movies, but because they've faced loss, felt grief, struggled in silence. Keanu just happens to show us what it looks like to survive all of that with kindness still intact. His fans don't love him because he's invincible. They love him because he's vulnerable, because he's faced the worst life can throw at a person: death, injury, heartbreak, public judgment, and never turned cold. Instead of becoming bitter, he became softer, not weaker, just more understanding. And maybe that's what makes his tragedy feel so personal to us. It's not the big moments of grief, it's the way he carries them day by day, the way he shows up, the way he listens, the way he doesn't try to pretend it's all okay. Because in that honesty, We see the part of ourselves that still wants to believe it's possible to live with pain and not let it break you. By now, Keanu Reeves has become something more than a Hollywood actor. He's a symbol for perseverance, for gentleness, for quiet strength. He's someone who has spent his entire life walking through loss after loss and somehow never let it steal his humanity. That alone is remarkable. But what makes his story even more powerful is that he never asked for recognition. He didn't want to be called a hero. He just wanted to be kind. And there's one final truth that pulls all of this together. Keanu's story, as tragic and inspiring as it is, mirrors something deeply human. Most people will never be famous. Most people won't train for stunt scenes or star in billion-dollar movies. But everyone will lose someone. Everyone will carry pain that doesn't always have words. And that's where Keanu's quiet legacy hits the hardest. He's living proof that even if you carry grief every day, you can still be good. You can still be generous. Still be joyful. Still be present for others. Keanu once said, "Grief changes shape, but it never ends." That's not just a quote. It's a truth he's lived for over 60 years. From his father's absence, to his sister's illness, to the death of his best friend, to the heartbreak of losing Jennifer and their daughter, his life has been a long walk through sorrow. But instead of letting it harden him, he let it teach him. Teach him how to listen, how to love, how to keep going. And in the rare moments when he does speak about these things, it's never for attention, it's for connection. He doesn't use his pain to make people feel sorry for him. He uses it to remind them that healing is possible, not easy, not fast, but real. And that reminder is more powerful than any movie he's ever made. In recent years, fans have started calling him the internet's boyfriend, or the nicest guy in Hollywood. While those labels are well-meaning, they don't really capture the full picture. Keanu's kindness isn't cute, it's not surface level. It comes from a place most people never see. It comes from having lost everything, and still choosing to show up for others. He's the man who gives up his seat on a subway, not because he's trying to impress someone, but because that's just who he is. He's the man who signs autographs patiently, talks to strangers with respect, and thanks every crew member on set like they're the star. And that's not a gimmick. That's a decision he makes every single day. And now, at 60, he's living in a different season of life. He's still working, still acting, still creating, but he's also slowing down, choosing peace over pressure. He lives in a quiet home, walks beside a koi pond, reads poetry, and paints with Alexandra. The man who once spent time in the Matrix, who once fought through entire armies as John Wick, is now choosing something softer. Not because he's given up, but because he knows what really matters. And if there's a final lesson in his journey, it's this. Pain doesn't have to define you, but it can shape you. And if you let it, it can shape you into someone better, not louder, not richer, but more whole. Keanu Reeves isn't perfect. He doesn't claim to be. He's made mistakes like anyone else. He's had moments of doubt, times when the pressure was too much, and seasons of life where everything felt broken. But through it all, he never lost his sense of self. In an industry that often rewards arrogance and flash, Keanu chose modesty and meaning. And maybe that's the greatest triumph of all. He didn't just survive, he stayed kind. He didn't let tragedy turn him cold. He didn't let fame turn him selfish. And he didn't let pain become an excuse for bitterness. Instead, he turned those hard experiences into quiet empathy, into strength, into art. And when you look at everything he's been through, from childhood abandonment to physical injuries to emotional loss, it's hard to believe he still walks with such grace. But he does, every day, without needing anyone to notice. For fans, that's what makes Keanu special. Not just the characters he plays, but the character he's built. A man who values silence in a noisy world, who sees people, not cameras, who continues to show up, even when it would have been easier to disappear. And there's one more thing that's easy to miss, but it matters. Keanu doesn't tell people how to live. He doesn't write books about resilience or give long speeches about success. He lives it, quietly, by example. He lets his actions speak. And those actions, small, consistent, sincere, have touched millions. Whether it's funding children's hospitals behind the scenes, honouring his stunt team with gifts, or helping strangers without fanfare, He shows that true generosity doesn't need an audience, it just needs a willing heart. And so, as he enters this new chapter of his life, Keanu Reeves remains not just a Hollywood icon, but something rarer, a reminder that goodness is still possible, that fame doesn't have to corrupt, that kindness can survive everything, and if his story has left us with anything, it's this: you don't need to live without scars to live with honour. You don't need to erase your past to move forward, and you don't need to speak loudly to be heard. Sometimes the quietest people leave the loudest mark. Keanu Reeves has lost a child, a partner, a best friend, a childhood, and even parts of his own body to injury. But what he hasn't lost is his soul. And in that, he's given the world something more valuable than entertainment. He's given us hope.